All right, y'all, let's get it going today talking about growth, and really excited for this one. One of my favorite topics to talk about, generally speaking. And there's a lot of different angles that we could take with it today, whether you want to talk about defining growth or how you should identify it in somebody else, or what you should be doing to find personal growth in your own life. Again, a lot of different ways we could go at this thing today, but there was one particular angle that I want to take that came up in conversation with my fiance this past weekend. And we were just kind of sitting down, chopping it up, talking about whatever. And she presented this idea of growth, so we started to dissect it a little bit more. And I wanted to share what we kind of thought about or came up with as a result of talking about this stuff again the previous couple of days. And I think it's going to make a lot of sense. I think it's going to relate to some people, especially right now. Maybe not just right now, but overall when it comes to the situations that I'm going to talk about here in a second. And what we were kind of talking about is this, right? No matter if it's me or her, anybody, I think as we grow older, we would like to believe that subconsciously and or hopefully consciously, we are finding growth in all aspects of our life, whether it's with our families, whether it's personally, spiritually, at our job. Again, all these different realms, hopefully we're making strides in the right direction, and we can be confident in saying so. But at the end of the day, how do you objectively kind of look at growth and say, yes, I have made strides in that right direction? Maybe no, I have not made strides in the right direction. What are some kind of benchmarks? What are some tangible ways, objective ways that I can look myself in the mirror and say yes or no when it comes time to finding that growth? So again, we started talking about these different ways we could do that. And she presented this one idea that I think is fantastic. And she said this, we kind of grow up with our families, right, our entire life from birth until, at least for most of us, through high school, maybe even through college or afterwards. So we're talking about 18, 20, 22, 25 years of our life. We're around these same core group of people for the vast majority of our time. Or maybe it's some friend groups. You grow up with some neighbors your whole life, or you hang around the same dudes or girls your whole life through high school and college and afterwards or whatever. So again, around these same groups of people, generally speaking. And then you kind of go away perhaps, right? So I'm from Detroit. I haven't been back home since in terms of living there. So it's been 4 or 5 years. Or for Jane, she's been to Chicago, and now we're down in Florida together. So it's been a few years in terms of being around those people that I just mentioned consistently. So we're thinking, maybe I can find, or I think I'm making strides in finding that growth, and it's all good. But how do I know? So we're talking about going back to see family and stuff. And she kind of presented this idea. And she said, you know what? I think what would be a really, really telltale sign if that growth that you quote unquote think you are finding is kind of cemented in your DNA very firmly is if you go back to these environments with your parents or with your siblings or with your friend groups. And there's one of two ways you can kind of attack this thing. When I go back to these situations or around these people, do I revert back to who I was with them previously, right? So we all know, what I'm kind of getting at here is, you're around your parents and you've always acted a certain way, and then you go off and you meet these new people and now you're acting a new way, whatever, and you go back home and you kind of relax a little bit. You just kind of revert back to who you were previously, right? So if I do revert back to these old habits, these old ways of acting or whatnot, like maybe that is an objective or telltale way to say, no, maybe I haven't found that growth, or I haven't found it as firmly as maybe I thought I had found it previously, right? Or maybe I do go back and who I think I am now in finding that growth, whether it's how I act or how I attack my spiritual life or how I attack, my daily habits or whatever. And I can still maintain those same things that I'm doing now when I find myself back in these kind of quote unquote old environments. If I can maintain that new stuff then maybe I have found that growth and it is cemented in me. And I can firmly say, yes, this is kind of the quote unquote new me. And I have found that growth, and I can confidently say that. And I thought that made so much sense, right? Because a lot of us right now are going back home because maybe we can't work or these different situations that we have going on right now. We're hanging back with old friends or whatever. And again, you can kind of look yourself in the mirror and say, am I reverting back to my old ways? Am I reverting back to my old habits? And does that mean it's wrong or I'm bad? No, I'm not saying that at all. But if you think you have found growth and you kind of are a new person, if you will, then check yourself a little bit when you go back to these old situations and see how you're acting, how you're going about your business. And that will give you the answer if I have or I have not found that growth that I'm talking about, right? And I thought that was such a cool angle when it comes to that growth. And then kind of secondly, when it comes to growth, I think if you do find yourself back in these old situations, and maybe it's your parents or it's your siblings or your friends, and you have developed these new habits for the better, or you have developed this new growth for the better, and people are kind of looking at you funny like, man, you changed, or you know what, Jane, you've changed. And you kind of look at them like, yeah, of course I've changed. I'm getting older, I'm maturing, I'm getting better, I'm growing. And if those people are really there for you, and they're really, you can say that they're your true friends or true, like they're gonna want you to change for the better, and they're gonna be okay with that. But if they're sitting back and judging you because you've had changed and you have gotten better in these different things, well, kind of pity on them. Would kind of be how I'd coin that. So it kind of couples with the idea of growth, is you can kind of identify who's really in your corner and who wants the best for you when you go back to these old situations and see who is kind of supporting you and the new you, if it is in the right direction, or if they're kind of judging you and kind of throwing in your face for getting better and for moving on. Then I think that's a telltale sign of who's really in your corner as well. So that's kind of an offset idea that we were talking about as well. But growth, I think we should all be striving to find out if we are growing in the right direction. We think we're getting better. And in our opinion, that's going to be one way that you can kind of tell if you are finding that stuff and it is there firmly inside of you, and you can identify with that now. So just an idea, just wanted to throw it out there, provoke some thought on this Monday. Give you guys something to think about throughout the day or throughout the week, and maybe it is an objective way for you personally to sit back and say, yes, I am finding it, or maybe I'm not. And does it mean this is going to work for everybody? And it's just like, no, it's just an idea to throw it out there. If you are back with your families right now, or you are going to be, or with your old friends, then maybe try it out, see what happens. And let me know what you think. But phenomenal conversation with her. I love having that stuff with her. I think that's why we tick so well. We're always bouncing ideas. We're always talking about deep stuff like that, and it's so cool. And just one of the many reasons that I love her very, very much. So shout out to you, Jane. But besides that, happy Monday to you guys. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Great to have you back on the podcast here, or Coob's Corner here, and looking forward to a big week and providing you guys some more value. Okay, so have a fantastic day. Let's keep getting better. Let's keep striving for betterment, and make somebody else better along the way as well. Okay, God bless you guys. Coach Coob.